Good afternoon and welcome to Lunchtime Series with me, Kevin Britz, proudly powered by leadershipbydesign.co, leading the charge with insights, information, and ultimately effective results. You can catch us live every Wednesday and Thursday at lunchtime on the ebizradio.com and all your major podcast channels today. Joining me in today's marketing and leadership segment, marketing communications expert, as per usual, Mr. Craig Paisley. How are you doing?
Kevin, I'm great. Yeah, we are. Our first show of 2024. And yeah, before we blink, it's going to be over in a flash again, just considering how fast last year went, eh?
Yeah, 2023 was, I was sitting actually thinking, because Google Photos have this wonderful, reminder kind of, oh, this is what happened last year. And it showed me some stuff. And I was just thinking about it this week, kind of going, sure, that just felt like a moment ago, when it was like a year ago, because it showed what happened a year ago, and it does. It's as if time is, something's happening to time that we're not aware of.
Yeah, there's definitely a whole nother world of stuff happening out there, considering the strangeness of the weather patterns we're experiencing at the moment in South Africa. And if you look at the cyclones that have hit Mauritius and Port Louis, where cars have been washed down the road, and gosh, yeah, we're definitely in an incredibly interesting, exciting new dawn. And yeah, obviously last Thursday, the birth of the age of Capricorn, is it?
Aquarius.
So is it Aquarius? So some really interesting new realms and realities for us to face. But did you have a good festive season though?
Good festive season. Had some wonderful time away with my daughter, which I always cherish. But I think what was nice about the holiday was it was very intentionally shut down, and like my brain shut off and I shut down, and I kind of went away and just really focused my attention on her, and just having a really good time. And it was just spectacular. And we went to Knysna and just re-emerging into the country, because I haven't been away for quite a while, but like really going to see a place and go and do all the things and go and experience it, and we did, and it was amazing.
That's fantastic.
And your festive season?
Yeah, I was house sitting some friends' properties with the dogs, and just really being the dog whisperer for most of the holiday. My son came up from Cape Town again, also had a phenomenal time, and just indulged in so much Christmas food and festivity. But I made damn sure to get straight into the gym, and it's been working. I've already lost close to 2 kilograms in the last 10 days. Just
fantastic.
Back on the watt bike and persevering and making sure that I start cutting out some of the vices that I like a good cold beer.
But Craig, one of the things I for today's show, because I know we're starting out, but one of the things I did want to mention was, which is pretty big deal that's happening in 2024, is, and I'm just dumbfounded by the fact that our country has the abilities that they do. We're world champions in the rugby, so that box is ticked, and now South Africa is suing Israel for genocide in Gaza. And I watched some of the trial and looked at the compiled evidence and how they supported it, and it was of the utmost brilliant, some of the best kind of support in evidence that they were sharing around what genocide really is and why this is genocide in Gaza, and what Israel's actually doing to the Palestinians. And they had such a beautiful portfolio to back them up. Yeah. And you kind of look at that and you kind of go, holy shit, that's our South Africa, that's just another brilliant example of this little country down south in Africa. But every now and then we amaze with such glorious victory, and we might not win because of a lot of political and influence from larger countries, but the fact that we did it and it's done, and the world. And interestingly enough, if you follow it on TikTok, because there's a lot of Palestinians posting about it, a lot of religious people posting about it. CNN doesn't cover this in their news. If you go to CNN's website, they don't cover it on it's not highlighted
That's
news.
interesting. Sure.
And you're kind of going, this is a big deal. This is a country suing Israel for, we're taking on a country for genocide, and CNN doesn't speak about it. The BBC doesn't speak about it. American news channels don't speak about it. It's not on top of their agenda. So it's really concerning to a large degree that news could be skewed so wonderfully.
That's a big reality we're acutely aware of, particularly when we talk about some of the topics we have covered in the past. Is the bias for one format of news and one storyline versus the other, and it's sad that it got pushed away and didn't get any airtime. For me, the incredible thing about it was I didn't get caught in the content and narrative because I just didn't have the time, but the professionalism of presentation and the structure and the likes was just really at its best. I've never seen anything like that. Interestingly, though, on 702 yesterday, Radio 702, there was a professor of law that came onto the show and actually refuted some of the statements that were made relative to the definition of the likes of genocide and some of the technicalities. And again, I ran into a meeting, so I couldn't sit in the car and finish listening to that. But yeah, all of that said, the ability to have a collective of such powerful minds come together and prepare a case and present it in such a compelling way, for me, really was the winner at the end of the day. I'm going to put my neck out and go, I think it's just so hypocritical because, we're mates with Russia and our government's mates with Russia and they can bypass all of that. And, there's genocide in the making in that regard as well. So, two wrongs don't make a right, irrespective. The nature of the consolidation of evidence and content in the presentation was so resolute. It made one feel proud being a South African in the sense that there was a group of individuals who were able to present a case to that extent. Whether you agree in the content of the case or not is not the point I'm picking up on. It's the ability for our judicial system and legal minds to still operate at some of the highest level in the world. And kudos to that collective.
Absolutely. And that, I think that's the point, is to kind of go, because South Africa, we can't even get half of what we want to do in this country, right? We're going to the International Court of Justice to kind of state a point. But the fact is, the point they stated was done profoundly, and it was quite a big
incredible. Absolutely.
Another thing that stands out for 2024 is the elections. It's going to happen this year, which is really interesting because I've also started watching some of the and I'm a TikToker, so I watch some of the news channels on TikTok, and what is being said about the elections. But South African elections, and another big is the USA, because if Trump gets back to the office, back to the White House, I don't know what's going to happen to their country. They're going to have their own little war in their country, I think, because it's if you listen to some of the narrative and some of the discussions, and there is no one currently that's strong enough to take on Joe Biden. But the problem is Trump's narrative and his craziness is what people are kind of holding on to. And he just, if you watch him present anything and speak publicly to anything, he just speaks mumbo jumbo. There's absolutely no thinking.
He's a master. Thought. Yeah, he's a master of that. Just absolute master of. I don't even know what word to use. Nevertheless, but just on the point of elections, Kevin, what really is interesting. I think there are 64 countries who are holding elections this year. And as much as 49% of the world's population are going to be impacted on by elections this year. There's a chance for 49% of the world's population to participate in an election to either hopefully correct the wrongs in their country or support those doing wrong in their country. And we know which way it's going to go in our country, unfortunately. But, that is 49% of the world's population are going to be participating in an election this year. Phenomenal.
Jeez, that's a lot, yeah. Another big stat, and I will have to get the right numbers for you. And there's someone just mentioned who has a podcast. If you have a podcast in the world, and because there's so many, and because it's so difficult to do, if you do have a podcast and you've got past episode 3, you're doing really well, right? If you get past episode 50, you are of the 1% podcasters of the world. And I was like,
oh, wow,
that's insane. So I'm like, okay, well, I need to do more investigation about that. But
we're on episode 142 today, Kevin.
Yes. So, it means that, and I don't know, I need to do more investigation around this, but like to really understand how that is measured, according to what and where the rankings sit. And obviously downloads and all of that, is taken into consideration. But the fact, one of the major points is if you are consistent and you do have a podcast and you've been past 50 episodes, you are considered one of the top podcasts in the world based on the fact that it's consistent, it's always showing up, and it's actually relevant content. And I'm pretty proud of that.
Yeah, that's great. Well done to both of us. I think that's probably a nice sort of segue to the point of just talking about some of the fresh changes we're going to try and adopt this particular year. You want to pick up on some of that, Kevin, and I'll add in as we go along.
Yeah, so we're going to switch it up with, and we have before, but this year is more intentional. And we're going to pick up on looking at marketing in a month and unpacking, some of the what's the word I'm looking for? The trends that are happening in the market. And then we're going to switch it up to leadership and look at some of the trends that are in leadership. And we're going to have guests join us on the show, and have more engagement through that, and switch it up so that it becomes really intentional about what we're doing and the conversations that we're having about the show.
Yeah. So monthly a marketing topic, the next month a leadership topic, and we'll alternate every second month on that basis. And then that particular topic, try and work across the 4 episodes of the month, picking up on different key components of that topic in question, and having one of those weeks inviting a guest speaker to join us. Absolutely, really great. The wonderful thing about it is obviously you've got a great assistant in the background now, assisting in helping us manage this process. So take a bit of the pain away from us, which will help us get more flexibility and a sort of more dynamic content and more guests onto the show. Kevin, I'm really looking forward to that. I'm just waiting to hear from a prospective guest for next week. Some exciting topics that we have in mind. What's really great is that you and I have sat and mapped out the intention of the next 6 months from a topic point of view. So we're already putting structure to the expectations for the first half of the year, which is great.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of intentions, just as a side note, is I usually have a newsletter, and I was chatting to Lauren, my assistant. I was just going, like, what are we like? What's the point here? Why is there a newsletter in the first place? Like, just to tell people about stuff, So I had a moment about it, and putting it out there now. So I've got to commit to it. So it's happening. So I've dedicated a page to write twice a month, and it's called, the newsletter is actually called Design to be a Leader. Because my business is Leadership by Design, and it, functionally works around leadership and what that entails. I'm going to be actively doing that on a monthly basis, at least twice a month, and share content that speaks specifically to what leadership looks like. And it's, yes, in my context and my experience, and from what I've researched and what I've done and what I know. But it's also setting an intention with, if I'm putting it out there, I'm going to put it out there with reason. And I don't know if you've seen, but like the first one we shared is the philosophy of leadership.
Yes.
And again, it's just my philosophy. It doesn't mean everyone needs a philosophy, but I believe that, as a leader, everyone has the ability and capability to be a leader. So it's, and I think in the world, if you look at the world and where the world is, and the stuff that's happening in the world, one of the significant points that I've had with some people in the last couple of months is we are at the precipice of where we have to decide on whether you're leading or whether you're against leadership. And that really is, and it's a mindset thing. It's, like, how are you leading your life? How are you leading your family? How are you leading your country? How are you leading your business? How are you leading your team? And it comes down to a mindset. And the mindset of leadership needs to change, because I think we've grown up with a certain type of mindset. And we're living in a world where to use the lingo of the newest generations, there's a wokeness happening that people need to understand and realize it's really happening. And if you're not woke enough, you're going to be left behind.
Yes.
And those generations are just going to take over, and rightfully so, because they've realized that there's a better way to be a leader than a dictator, rather than a dictator, right? And that's the point, that, designed to be a leader. And what does that mean? What does it mean to really design your own leadership and come from a position that inspires and leads and gives people something to aspire to?
And leaders go through a transition as well, Kevin. So really, it's about understanding what are the steps for a leader to have some self-understanding as to the steps of transition that they need to go to or through in their own personal journey of elevating up the ranks of leadership capability, whilst espousing the values and virtues and capabilities to the team around them to bring them along the way. It's a wonderful topic, and we definitely, I know month 2 is the leadership focus, and we're going to dive straight into some of that, but definitely it is, a couple of tips that jump to mind. Firstly is, what are the expectations of leadership evolution in the process? What are those feedback loops from the executive team of leaders with you, but also the collective of the teams you are leading? What are you doing in terms of monitoring your own progress as much as the team's progress, to then aligning with the company strategy? And then also, again, the one thing is always just, being bold enough to put your hand up and say, I need help in my leadership capability and my leadership journey as well. And then it's always about that reflecting and learning proposition, and then sit back when you've done the reflecting and learning. What are the iterations? What do I need to adjust, and what do I need to work on to be more effective for myself as self-leadership, and then obviously for the team I'm leading? And that's one of the sort of the articles that I came across over the holidays that really stood out for me. 5 or 6, 7 simple steps and processes to just consider when trying to understand how to adjust your leadership progress and capability.
Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, Craig, to finish off today's conversation, you shared a really nice thought piece, which I'm gonna shoot it to you first. Let's, if we had to give ourselves advice, if we had to look at ourselves back 20 years ago and kind of go, what advice would you give your younger, let's say 25-year-old self? If you could give them advice today, what advice would you give them?
Yeah, Kevin, that's it. It is. Again, it's an article that really jumped out at me. Hence, saying to you today, let's talk about that as a potential topic. I think the critical thing here is, would I have changed much of the journey? Maybe not. I have changed degree, formalized a degree in architecture, and that led me into a realm of introduction to branding in the sense of three-dimensional spaces, and that then into the mainstream purity of brand from a consumer point of view, and brand from an employee point of view as well. So yeah, for first bit of advice coming out of that change of direction of career, of which they are all intricately linked, believe it or not, is don't be scared to make a radical deviation and change when you're on the journey to something that you think is the end point. And if something else comes along and you are able to immerse yourself in that headspace to see how it's going to add value to life and give you open other opportunities or new paths, even if it's a parallel path for a period of time, don't be scared to step into the other lane and take the risks. Be prepared to, as they always say, fail forward quickly, but stand up, dust yourself off, and take those learnings and move on to the next step and the next step. And it doesn't mean that you only have to do it once. You can do it more than once, and you could inevitably come back to the place that you started. But do not be scared, and maybe to have taken one or two more of those risks earlier in my life as opposed to later. That is definitely one. I'll maybe give you three, and then I'm going to ask you the same. The other one, particularly when I was living in London the first time, is buy property as soon as you can. I've had some properties sold, moved overseas, lost some money, got divorced, given stuff up and things like that. But just get in and buy property as soon as you can within your affordability range. And as you grow in life and stature, use that as collateral to grow the next and the next and the next. So for me, that is, if I can think back and just to have been able to have sat here and had more than one property would have just been a really wonderful place to be, because it would have hedged something good for my son moving to the future as well. And the third piece of advice, well, there's lots of advice we can give ourselves. I'll just say, just maybe if I had traveled less, I would have had more money in the bank. But in my travels, I've had more life experience to give me opportunities to change the lanes that I spoke about at the first point. But often I say to the youngsters is just put in place a provision for retirement. In fact, there we go, as early as possible. Just advice. Property and or good annuity income based businesses, or structure something for those retirement years, and try not to use it all. I've been in a few startups and have had to pull the money out wherever needed. Just make sure that you've got a stockpile for your retirement years. It's vitally important.
It is, yes.
Those would be my sort of a current top three that just sort of sprung to mind. And yours?
I would, my very first one that comes to mind is travel more. When I was younger, I was just awkward and weird and scared, and I think it taps into that whole fearfulness, and so I never took the opportunity to do that. I never traveled as extensively as I would have liked to, could have, as a youngster. So I would really, take the opportunity to go and work on a farm in Spain and pick strawberries if I was 25 right now, and do stuff like that. I also,
to add to that, travel is part of that university of life. It is such a wonderful piece of self-advice. Travel more. I was fortunate in my life to have done that, as you well know, 41 countries, and may that continue. Gosh.
Absolutely. And so I would have traveled more, and and I think the second one would be to be so much more braver. I haven't been brave enough in my life, and I think that taps into the fear conversation you're talking about, because I was brought up, I was born into religion and brought up in a very staunch religious household. So being brought up in a very religious household, my life from the ages of from 4 that I can remember to 27 was going to church every single day of my life. and that if I say every single day, like most days, maybe 250 days of the year, we would be in church, we would be doing church things.
Wow.
And it was revolved around religion until I started asking questions that people didn't like. And this doesn't make sense. How, please explain this to me. So I think, just be braver, like a lot more braver to step out of that comfort zone. But also, when we were 25 years old, we didn't have social media. We didn't have a lot of things that we do today.
Correct.
So what we were exposed to was very different to what we are exposed to today. So I think that probably influenced it a lot. But I think I would have been, be braver at doing things and not be so worried. And the third thing is, and maybe it's obvious for some people, but for me, if I look back at my life, it wasn't obvious enough, is to love myself more. I always did stuff for people so that people would like me. I always sang, because when I was singing, people were happy. So I would do that because it made other people happy. It didn't make me necessarily happy. So I got married because that's what families did when I was young. And, and it's like, okay, well, this is what we do in the church. We get married. So I got married. And, and if I look back at my life and I think, why did I make some of those decisions? I kind of understand now as an adult that I probably didn't love myself enough, right? I didn't really love me and I didn't appreciate me. But I also, my environment that I grew up in didn't support that.
Yeah.
You were just a number and you were a noise, and get out of my sight. You're a child, go to your room, do what you need to and get on with it. I think those are traveling more, be braver, and love yourself just a little bit more.
Well, those three work very well together because you can do all of them collectively. Whilst you're traveling, love yourself, be brave to travel more, and on the journey, love yourself, and you just get to experience the travels in a much more personal, deep, meaningful way.
Yeah, and I think that advice is the advice that I follow today. I kind of go, any opportunity that I get to travel, I'm like, yes, I'm going to do that. Any opportunity I get to be brave, and currently I'm pretty brave because I do note that I kind of do stuff sometimes, and I think, why the hell did I do that? And it's like, okay, well, let's see what happens. I don't know, designed to be a leader. It's like, the first thing is like, why would you put yourself out there to do that? And I'm kind of, well, that's challenging. Why not? Why not be the brave one? Why not be the person that intentionally wants to share like good messaging and good advice and stuff that and stuff that you research? It's a really brave thing to do. So I think I apply a lot of that advice that I just gave to my younger self that I apply it today, and I think it's in a big way, and it's quite nice.
Kevin, from my side, I came across an article. I spent an afternoon just going through all of the previous articles and newsletters that had an important statement in it, and I've flagged those. And I read through them one afternoon, and one I've kept for our first opening show to just mention what I'm going to look out for this year is really the influence of Gen Z on the world and work. We started picking up on Gen Z and the impact of possibly eliminating the middle management layer late last year and things like that. But the particular article that I kept is really one that absolutely clearly articulates the importance of understanding Gen Z. There was a brand, a wonderful outdoor retailer in the USA called Eddie Bauer. And I think the article was from October last year, where Eddie Bauer changed its brand identity because Gen Z does not read cursive.
That's true. I mean, I'm laughing because it's factual.
Kevin, 60 years of having that distinctive script. Okay, beautiful. It really was a beautiful, distinctive script.
Yeah.
They've ditched it for the heavy block text.
Wow.
Interestingly, they've brought the goose into the end of their logo, which is direct relevance because they were, from my understanding, they were actually the first outdoor brand to include goose feather in the padding of their jackets, if I recall. So they brought a nice heritage piece in, and obviously a modernized version and things like that. So a fundamentally different brand construct to the beautiful, really crafted, quite sophisticated logo that they used to have. And for me, that's the one thing that I'm putting on the front of my radar is, what is Gen Z going to do this year that is going to continue the evolution of changing the world from a brand point of view, from a sustainability point of view, from a messaging point of view, but from a political standpoint as well. So yeah, that's Gen Z is definitely in my radar to very carefully monitor and review what's happening in that world and bring that into our conversation.
I think what's on my radar for this year is organizational culture. How can we change? And it speaks to that conversation you're having right now. Is and one of the programs that we're running with Leader as Coach. How do you step into that coaching role, and what does it mean to actually coach rather than just be a manager? And it's considering that those factors that you're speaking about, like Gen Z and the way that these generations are partaking in life and how they're showing up in life. You cannot dictate to them. You cannot. It doesn't work. You have people resigning. You have people like tools down, and you're kind of going, well, it's because you're trying to use a very old kind of way to get through to people, and that just doesn't work anymore, guys. We're evolving out of that kind of leadership way that we do things, and we need to step it up.
And Kevin, just to close it from my side on that point is, as you know, one of the areas I'm spending quite a bit of time at the moment with a particular agency is around the whole employee brand, employee value proposition space, and that really is where the absolute understanding of the impact of the likes of Gen Z on an organization helps companies clarify their employee brand, and the deeper you understand the needs of that potential new young workforce, the better it is for you to be able to articulate and build the employee brand that you want them to look into and be part of.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly the point. And the more they pay attention, the better it's going to be. And I think that's going to be some nice points that we can raise in the show throughout the year.
Yes.
Craig, so I don't even have a quote for you today. My computer's freezing up here and nothing's working.
Oh gosh.
So
okay.
So if you could share your sentiment, and I mean, let me ask you this: what is your word for the year, Craig?
Word for the year. Wow. Enrich.
Enrich.
Yeah.
That's a good one. I like that. Yeah.
And enrich myself, enrich the people around me, enrich the clients I work with, enrich my family, and enrich. I'm going to write that down, actually. I'm going to make that my mantra, enrich. Yes. And yours?
I think, probably it's more of a sentiment than a word, and I think it's applicable across my entire existence. Is be better. Just be better. Be better at being a leader. Be better at being a dad. Be better at being a friend. Be better at being a family member. Just be better.
That's great.
So, yeah, with that said, Craig, thank you for a new intro to 2024 and
yes.
the new format. And I look forward to our interesting guest next week if he's available.
Guys, I'm going to push.
Yeah, we're trying our best to get a futurist on the show. So and to unpack that a bit. So yes, so tune in for that. That's going to be a really good one. Craig, thank you so much. Have a fantastic week, and I will chat to you soon.
Yeah, look forward to that, Kevin. Yourself. Be better.
Cheers, bye. Be better.